Haere mai, kei tēnei hui. Welcome to this Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting for the 4th of June 2025. Just to note that this meeting is being live streamed, so please make sure that your phones are turned off or on silent. And we will be having Mayor Tapsell join us via Zoom today. And we'll probably aim for a break around 11 a.m. this morning. But before we get going, I'd just like to invite Councillor Maxwell to start us with a karakia, please.
He hi noi tātou, e te atu a whakatū wheratia mai kia mātou ngā kuaha o te tika, o te pono, o te māramatanga i tēnei wā i ngā wā katoa. Ko hihu kraiti hoki tō mātou kai whakaora. Āmene. Amen. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, Councillor Maxwell. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Patterson. Do I have any other apologies? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Madam Chair, I need to leave approximately 12:45.
12:45, thank you very much. Any other apologies, councillors? There appear to be none. I'd ask for a mover that the apologies from Councillor Patterson be accepted. Councillor Waru and Councillor Lee. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried, thank you. We'll move on to declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest today? There appear to be none. Item 4 is urgent items, not on the agenda, and there appear to be no such reports today. Are there any minor matters, councillors? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. There was a query last week when we were talking over the over the Tarawera scheme, and there was just a query over comments made at the Bay of Plenty Regional Council as to the timing of their contribution of, 750,000. Have we had any update on that, if it's to be paid at stage 1 or at the completion of the scheme? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. What's the point? Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, we'll take that question and answer it during the progress report, if that's okay. Thank you. Any other minor matters, councillors? There appear to be none. Thank you. We'll move on now to item 5 on page 6 of your agendas, the minutes for the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting held on the 7th of May. If there's no matters for correction, then I'll ask for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Waru, that the minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting held on the 7th of May are a true and correct record. Can I have a seconder? That's Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That is carried. Thank you. Now, item number 6 is presentations. There was to be a presentation on the High Levels Property Strategy. This presentation has been pushed till July, so we'll have it in that Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is the staff reports. 7.1, the progress report for infrastructure and environment and infrastructure and assets on page 14 of your agenda, councillors. Can I have a mover and a seconder that the progress report be received, please? Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Brown, all those in favour? And against? That is carried, thank you. I'll now ask Stavros Michaels to come forward and overview his report. Morena, Stavros.
Morena, good morning, elected members, through you, Madam Chair. I will happy to take the report as read, and I will happy to take any questions elected members may have with that report. If it's okay, I would just want to make a couple of preliminary comments. This progress report, it comes to almost to the end of the current financial year. I would like to note and urge elected members to note the various activities that are taking place in those progress reports systematically over the last 11-12 months, but also to focus on achievements rather than activities. The purpose of all these sample of works we outline our progress report is actually to attain the achievements, targeted by this council, especially with regards to infrastructure services, and those, I repeat, they remain to be the provision of safe services, reliable services to our community, and to maintain our various 250,000 types of assets we operate, provide these services in a stable condition. I am pleased to see that for the last 12 months, and all those key objectives have been achieved. We have provided all our services in a safe manner. Our water services, our sewage services, our transport services, our waste management services are all provided in a safe way. The services experience very little interruption throughout the period of the financial year, so they were reliable. The average member of our community received all the services in a systematic, consistent and reliable way, and our assets in general are in a stable condition. That means we do not have sudden and unexpected interruptions to our services. As elected members are aware, a few weeks ago a presentation was made to you that our non-financial KPIs for the period to the end of March, I believe. To that point in time, the core infrastructure services have been in the green. That means we're meeting all our KPIs in our infrastructure services, and therefore all the activities we describe in this progress report aim and slave to that, our collective outcome and our purpose. So this final report, to the end of the year, obviously that outlines that most of our systematic, proactive and reactive, works have been completed. Our roading network, our reseals programs, the renewal programs have been completed or almost completed. Our water renewals also and upgrades, for storage and to accommodate growth and have been in the process of being completed. Our water quality, meets drinking water standards, and the services reliability in general meet the expectations set by elected members and embodied in the non-financial KPIs. To that effect, also I'm pleased to note that in recent reports where our built-in consents have run ahead of many other parts of the country, that means our infrastructure not only is able to provide safe, reliable and stable services for our current community, but also is making provision for the future growth as anticipated by future development strategy. To that effect, that's my entry to the progress report. I'm more than happy to take any questions elected members may have related to this report or any activities embodied within. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stavros. And welcome, Mayor Tapsell, via Zoom. Nice to see you. Would you like to just answer the question from Councillor O'Brien regarding the payment from Bay Plenty Regional Council to the Tarawera scheme?
Yes, sure, Madam Chair. Again, as I noted last week, we have been in touch with the Bay Plenty Regional Council since December last year, seeking an arrangement for when the $750,000 dedicated by the Regional Council to Tarawera will be paid. There's been a number of exchanges between us. As late as early this morning, I spoke to my colleague in the Regional Council, and I've been advised that they're working through to finalize the payment regime. They are waiting for the Chief Executive to arrive back to make some decision as to whether all of the $750,000 will be paid in relation to the completion of stage 1 of the project, or some parts of it might be dedicated to completion of stage 2. That is the latest information I've got, as I said, about half an hour ago. And I'm waiting for my colleagues in the Regional Council to give us definitive answers as to how they see that payments, to their commitments, will be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. Are there any questions on the report, councillors? Councillor Brown, and up to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Relating to the work that's being done, I don't see it in the report. Can you tell me how many people, how many Tarawera residents have signed their locality plans off the top of your head? Do you know?
We have 94 people signed the locality plans. We have installed 72 units at this point in time.
94 is about 25%, is it?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Waru?
Tēnā koe te tiamana o tira morena tātou katoa. Thank you, Stavros. And just in regards to the question that Councillor O'Brien asked around the payment, seeking some clarification from, on one hand, I've heard Regional Council do not fund water schemes or sewage schemes, yet there is a payment scheduled for us to receive the $750,000 $100,000 from Regional Council. Seems a bit conflicting to me, that kind of thing. Can you please explain it or perhaps expand on what that payment is actually for?
Thank you, Councillor Waro. I would not try to anticipate what the Bay of Plenty Regional Council's rationale is for that contribution. However, my understanding since the inception of those, of the scheme, when it was agreed, and progressed in the 21-31 long-term plan of the council, the regional council has adopted the view that that would be the equivalent amount they would have to incur if the reticulation system was not into place, and they may have to, enforce the offset plan, at that point in time. So the accuracy of that amount, I'm not here to, I can only speculate about it. However, they have made a commitment since the very early stages of Tarawera to make that contribution to the scheme, and obviously that's allowed at this point in time.
So you're confirming that they are making a contribution and they can, in fact, make a contribution to the scheme?
Well, again, the Bay of Plenty Regional Council has made contributions to various sewage schemes, and a classic example is the East Rotorua scheme. They have contributed $8.4 million to that scheme for various reasons. So they have made contributions to other isolated, sewage schemes, both in the Rotorua area and in the region. But I don't want to enter into the realm of that, of that policy, decision making by the Bay of Plenty Regional Council.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for that clarification, Stavros. The second question I had was just around, I wonder if you could explain and just define for me the definition of a renewal versus a new CapEx project.
Well, we've got actually three types of capital expenditure projects, programs of work. One is the renewal. You have, as I said earlier, we've got somewhere in the region of 250 to 270,000 individual assets that serve for our infrastructure networks. Obviously, each one of that asset has got a finite life expectancy, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. That drives a regime of when it's appropriate to renew an asset to continue to perform its intended function. So we fund the renewal of that program on a systematic basis in order to make sure that the asset does not deteriorate to a level that fails to meet its intended purpose. The second class of capital expenditure is where we need to ensure that we increase levels of service. A classic example of that is going to be the Tarawera scheme. Tarawera scheme was served by septic tanks. Now we have to, we agree to initiate a reticulation scheme to improve the level of service to that community, and that is funded by the council, and the council has a funding and revenue policy associated with that. And the next, third level of capital expenditure, it's the expenditure that is intended to fund growth capacity. Our wastewater treatment plant, for example, we had a certain treatment capacity. We anticipate growth over the next 30 years. We just have to upgrade the capacity of the treatment plant to enable that growth, to be absorbed. And we do that, for water supplies and so on, where we know that it's future development. We invest, into increasing the capacity of the infrastructure, and usually a lot of that investment is recovered slowly through development contributions policy or other funding instruments that the council may decide. So you've got renewals, you've got levels of service improvement, and you've got investment for growth. That's a capital expenditure programs we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Excuse me, Councillor O'Brien, and then Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through the Chair, thank you very much for your very helpful and comprehensive report, as usual, Stavros. If I may, could I just ask you about the $750,000 payment? Forgive me, is it a commitment from Regional Council, or do we have an actual written agreement? Because I'm a bit surprised that there seems to be, shall we say, a pause between when the payment's supposed to be received, whether it be completion of stage 1 or stage 2, or... I'm a bit surprised there isn't a more finite step in place to say, right, this is where we seek the money.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Yes, we have a letter of commitment by the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. If memory serves me right, it was back in 2021. We have a letter committing to pay $750,000. That letter did not actually specify phase or the stage of the project to be paid. We have, when we started initiating a claim for that $750,000 back in December last year, then the Bay of Plenty Regional Council advised us that they wanted to structure what we call a payment agreement that will define the milestones that need to be met to get the $750,000. We suggested to them and approached it from the perspective that the external funding we have received from the Ministry of the Environment, for example, the $6.5 million, was dedicated to be assigned to stage one of the project, which now has been completed, and therefore we expected the Bay of Plenty Regional Council's funding contribution to go to stage one. And the rationale for that, of course, is that once you put the stage one, which is main reticulation system, the pump stations and everything else, you actually have a reticulation system in place. What remains to be done after that for stage two is each individual properties to connect to that reticulation system. Our view is that the reticulation system is in place now, and that's what's going to drive our future actions for our individual properties to connect to it. So that's our position. My colleagues in the Regional Council advised me that more or less see it so that the same way, but obviously we're waiting for a final decision from their perspective.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your answer with that. Could I just ask you, on page 20 of our agenda, page 6 of your report, it talks about the Moray Street dams. Could I just ask you, could you help me out a little bit with the defects liability period? Is this where we find out if there's any problems with the system during testing, etc., like that?
Yes, Councillor O'Brien, like any construction project, once it reaches the stage of what we call practical completion, there is usually a 12-month defects liability period where the contractor is obligated to go back and fix any defects that found into that process. It's not unusual to any building a house or anything, to that effect. The practical completion of the Moray Street dams have been achieved, late last year. We are now well into the defects liability period, and so I think that expires in October this year. And obviously, as I noted in my report there are some claims by the contractor for which we are assessing to be aligned with a complete closure of that project. As I said, noted earlier, it's not unusual for major contracts like that for the contractors to notify of their intention to lay some variation claims. We have a contractual position to that effect. We're seeking to understand the validity of such claims, and that is not unusual. That happens to all our undertakings. So the defects liability will finish by October when the practical completion has been completed. Any variation claims are in the process of closing them off at the moment. And if you have agreement, that's it. If you don't have an agreement, there are contractual methodologies to address these variation claims. If they are valid, we will advise the council of elected members in due course. But at this point in time, our position is that we believe we don't have those kinds of liabilities.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your report.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maxwell, then Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Stavros, for your report. My question is on the next page, page 21, the Linton Park detention dams. In your report, you say the Western Stormwater Management Plan will mitigate against flooding in Mangakakahi and Utehena. Of course, that includes Ohenamutu catchments, another 1,000 new homes. The question I have is, are you confident there isn't another dam in the future required?
With regards to the Linton West and East, as I reported to the Council some time ago, initially the concept plan anticipated 2 dams, one on Linton Park East and one on Linton Park West. Subsequent to that, the hydraulic modeling indicated that we can achieve all the benefits from a single detention dam on Lyndon Park East, and that has been completed now. It's done. Now we're just working with the regional council with some final building concerns, approvals. However, the overall master plan for stormwater detention in the Western catchment anticipates exploration of an additional detention facility on the top of Magakahi Stream. And we are actually, and I think we will report later on with our capital projects, we are working through the feasibility and technical constraints, to that work. And that Magakahi, detention attenuation dam will be linked and associated with the planned developments on the site of the Pukehangi, development, what we call the Plan Change 2, where it's about 800 houses to be built, in that respect. So everything becomes one single hydraulic system where we have attenuation in the PC2 area, you've got attenuation on the upper reaches of Magakahi 2, and you've got the attenuation in Lyndon Park East. And the whole idea behind all those attenuation interventions is actually to slow down water that's run down in an event of 100-year event, in order to balance the flows down towards the lower Utuhina and obviously protect the lower Utuhina, including Ohinemutu and including other particular areas. We're halting in the upstream sites of the catchment for sufficient time to allow it to drip feed in the lower reaches to reduce the flooding risk.
Councillor Maxwell, if I can summarise, no, we're not in a position to say that no other interventions will be required.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lee and then Councillor Wang. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you for your report, Stavros. I was interested in the renewals happening at Westbrook Place. I visited there several years ago when there was a major storm happening. I guess this is happening at the low point in that street where there used to be serious pooling happening to the distress of some residents. I guess I'll be pretty pleased with this. Am I fishing in the right pond here? Is that where the renewals are happening on Westbrook Place and at the low point next to the pathway that goes on to Westbrook Park?
Parts of it, yes.
Yeah. So that's making the pipes
making
wider
the
or
pipe
something?
capacity larger.
Yeah. Great. I'm sure the residents will be thrilled about that. There's a lot of money being spent on the two dams at Moray Street and Linton Park. I'd just like to flag, I'd be interested, and perhaps other elected members might be interested in a site visit and just have a look around. It's perhaps the media might like to join us as well, but it's certainly significant constructions. Other than that,
I'm sure we can arrange it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Stavros, for the report. I'd just like to congratulate about the 24-25 reseal program being complete and within budget. And I note that it's been noted here that the target is to reseal 6 to 8% of the total network. Can you talk a little bit about how much has been completed this year around that 6 to 8% target?
We are close to 7%.
And
it's about 64 kilometres of road.
Thank you. And just under that same section around the local road improvements, again, you've noted that there's been no NZTA funding allocated, so the projects under there is limited and prioritised to critical safety elements for 3 years. So that's incredibly disappointing that we haven't received the NZTA funding for that. And also no NZTA funding allocated for the speed management infrastructure. So you mentioned there it's just a purely reactive approach to address risk as required. So is that based off, what would that be based off?
As you know, the Councillor Wang, the National Land Transport Programme allocated next to nothing for road safety improvements. However, as a road controlling authority, we are the road controlling authority. we are ready to, and we are obliged to respond to an acute, safety issue that may come to our attention. Now, areas and criteria that may trigger that, it would be, for example, a situation where pedestrians or vehicles and drivers, obviously, of vehicles might become at risk simply because the configuration of a particular road appears to be unsafe for driving conditions. We are not aware of any such cases at this point in time. As I said earlier, we come to the end of the financial year with our programs, and we are fortunate enough, and hopefully also with some good management, that we are meeting all our safety outcomes. However, if a school, for example, reports that they perceive an acute safety risk to the children who go to school, then our responsibility would be to intervene and address that safety risk as we see fit from a technical perspective. I'm not aware of any of that at this point in time, but we should be prepared to respond to that like we respond to an emergency event, for example, a weather event. We haven't got allocated budgets for that because we cannot anticipate it, but if it occurs, then we have to respond to that.
Thank you. And I note that you also have mentioned down there that Rotorua Road safety improvements are scheduled for LTP year 2 or 3, depending on the budget allocation. So I know that that will be much looked forward to by many in that part of our community who do use that road. Can you talk a little bit about how that's, is that the intersections with the state highways, or is that mainly just safety improvements along the road?
It's interventions along the road. The intersections, obviously with the highways, we have to have a collaboration with NZTA because they run the state highways. But there's some parts of the roads where we will do realignment of the road. We identify sort of the radius or the gradient of the road and its, its improvements.
Thank you. And finally, just around the algal bloom and E. coli bacteria testing that you mentioned down there, done with through regional council. Can you talk a little bit about how, because I was aware that that was just funded over the summer period, and there was a bit of a concern that it, throughout the rest of the year that there's kind of a bit of a lack of data around that, particularly around the algae blooms and the E. coli contamination in our waterways, and especially around those areas mentioned here that areas of, the way people do go bathing, or animals or people with dogs do go and into the water. So are you able to kind of just explain a little bit about that?
I'll first address the algae blooms. Algae blooms is a symptom or a byproduct of warm weather conditions and accumulation of nutrients. What you call eutrophication. There's a lot of nutrients going into the water. And again, that is the responsibility, the monitoring is the responsibility of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, and obviously we do that in partnership and in conjunction with them, because these warning systems are controlled and monitored by the Ministry of Health. So we all work to accumulate information for that. In wintertime, algae blooms is not a usual risk because the weather conditions and temperature is not such that encourages eutrophication. Nutrient reduction, again, is a program of work that is assigned strictly to the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. They undertake land incentives programs, land management, consenting, and so on, and again, they lead the responsibility for that. E. coli, most of the times we have E. coli, there are two types of questions. What are the possible sources of E. coli? If they're human, that means it's got a connection with our sewage system. We have an ongoing response to that, and we retrace the possible escape of untreated sewage that caused it. To the best of my knowledge, most of the interventions and cases we have so far, E. coli identified in waterways are usually avian or bovine, animal E. coli. So where we have identified human E. coli, that's linked to an intervention through our sewage maintenance contractor and our sewage intervention projects, and we deal with that. So that's an ongoing process, but usually the algae blooms are spring, summer period, risk. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Stavros, for your report, and that appears to be all the questions for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 7.2, which is the progress report for active and engaged communities. This is on page 35 of your agendas, councillors. Can I have a mover and a seconder that the progress report, active and engaged communities, be received? Thank you, Councillor Lee. Seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Rob Keithley and Alex Wilson to overview the report and give us a short presentation. Good morning. Over to you.
Morning, Madam Chair. Morning, elected members. Right. We have a brief presentation, really just to orientate councillors into the report. It follows a similar format to the report we did across the group a couple of months ago. The report presents progress across activities over the last sort of 2 months for the active and engaged communities area, and reporting's through until April. I do have some verbal updates on additional progress that we've made as well, which I'll include in the presentation. We've included in the report as well a quick summary, I guess, of the extent of work that the team is responsible for. And I think it's just a really useful context to understand the breadth of the work that this particular team deliver on behalf of Council. So just diving into the report itself, or into the table, really, I guess as a general comment, you'll see that we're either near or very near or exceeding our annual target measures as at the end of April. The one that sticks out, though, obviously, is the Learn to Swim lessons there. The target was set at pre-COVID and pre-refurbishment levels, but we are seeing a steady increase in enrolments over the last year. A lot of these percentages are based on surveys that we conduct. So the last recent survey of aquatic centre users indicated cleanliness and security as their biggest concerns at the aquatic centre, and we're reassessing our cleaning contracts as a result of that. In addition, inner city guardians who currently patrol Corral Park are doing a swing by the aquatic centre as part of their route now too. So we expect to see some improvements in that score at the next survey point. I guess interestingly for us, we're achieving some positive engagement scores across all park metrics, but there are some areas that have seen what I sort of think is a bit of a step change. Particularly, we're seeing accessibility having seen a significant improvement score, so we're already exceeding the end of year measure by 2%. Security scores are also already sitting at 92%, which was the year-end result last year, and we've still got a couple of months to go there. We are getting some improvement scores around parks security, but we also want to point out that security scores were lower in sports parks, and I'll touch a little bit on that briefly in terms of risks as well. Moving on to our non-LTP measures, the table is presenting our year-to-date results, so comparing this with the same time as of last year. We're exceeding our level of service end-of-year average result by 1.5% in parks audits. We're a little bit behind our monthly inspection targets for playgrounds as at the end of April, and that's largely due to a couple of missed inspections during that 2-month period. The latest detail from the team is that we've popped back up to 99.5% completion rate, so we've fixed that gap. Our current target for completing jobs under 30 days is 80%, and we're sitting at 72% currently. We've utilised some new processes, including streamlining our handover between the works and planning teams that have helped to see our performance improve here. So the most recent stats, we've seen that 72% number jump up to 77%, so that's a good improvement on last year, so a 7% increase from last time. Touching briefly on the kind of key challenges and risks that the team are facing, the Titoki sports fields consenting has delayed things somewhat there. We're waiting on feedback from affected parties, and traffic management has proved quite complex, more complex I think than previously thought. Our best estimate on when that work will commence is around September. Rough sleeping continues to impact our safety ratings within parks and reserves. In addition to the visibility of our inner city patrols, we're making sure that we're connecting with the appropriate support services and are aware, so that they're aware of that rough sleeping community, and where appropriate are helping find them alternate accommodation and getting access to that support, that broader support. Sports field vandalism, there's quite a bit of coverage through the media around this. That has been, a number of incidents affecting our sports fields. We are working with police and adding in additional security measures. So we have CCTV. We're looking to limit access points where possible. It still proves to be a challenge for us, but we have been recently successful on getting reparation for 2 motorbike damage incidences. Looking forward, there's some great things to pat ourselves on the back with. Working well with Rotorua NZ in securing the Samoa versus Fiji rugby match at the Rotorua Stadium. We do have a broader report on the stadium utilisation coming to CNDD next week, so I'll wait till that to share the areas where we think we've got some improvements that we can make. We have signed a 3-year partnership with New Zealand Touch Rugby and Māori Touch Rugby that will be based at the stadium. That will, however, use also the Westbrook and Ray Board fields, and the stadium will also be the base for hosting the 26-27 International Pacific Cup Touch Rugby Tournament. A little bit of a tongue twister for me there. Our strategy of increasing the utilisation rates of our existing sporting infrastructure has improved with the installation of lights at Rayboard Park and better between-season maintenance, allowing for improved field conditions. We're also turning our minds to implementation of the PARS strategy, the first step being looking at establishing some working groups for the spaces and places directions of that strategy to help identify further investigations that we might need to complete for future investment options for the next LTP. So those working groups will be based on sporting, recreational and play opportunities and include key stakeholders from each sector. Just an example, I guess, on number 4, which is, just getting our systems streamlined. I wanted to sort of touch briefly on our process around trees and tree complaints. So we receive approximately 500 requests each year relating to trees. And what we've identified is, really the current process wasn't supporting timely information to customers on the progress of their queries or their complaints. So what we've done is we've essentially, with the Works Department being now in-house, they and the Parks team are looking at a more coordinated, I guess, communication to those customers, specifically in cases where urgent works come in. So we may have told you we'll come to you within 3 weeks. An urgent case comes in and all hands on deck to fix that. So and what we were sort of falling down on is actually picking up the phone and saying, you're still in our books, but it's now going to take a little bit longer. So we've got we've really done quite a big tidy up there, getting on top of that. And we're also working with our customer solutions team to make those outbound calls to customers to give them progress updates as well. So utilising skills across the group. Those are the kind of main points I wanted to bring attention, but yeah, happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Rob? Thank you. Great to hear about the improvements you'll be making around the trees particularly, but also around the sports fields and the increased use that we're getting out of them because of the lighting and all those kinds of things we're putting in place. So be interested to have any questions, councillors. Councillor Lee, then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's unusual to get ahead of Councillor Patterson for a question, but here we are. Hey, thank you for your report, Alex, and good to hear about these trees. I mean, trees can be a serious issue, and they fall on the people. I was wondering whether the utilisation of our website could assist with keeping people informed about upcoming work.
Through you, Madam Chair, there is a piece of work where that our information solutions team are working on where people will be able to get some real-time information on where their requisitions are up to. Right. So we're working with them at the moment on that time frame. I might just defer to my colleague, Mr. Calais. I'm thinking that was in the next couple of months.
Sounds good. So we must have a whole team of people just dedicating to chopping down trees then, do we?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Obviously, our Works Department's got a couple of arboricultural crews, and you know we have to be very responsive. But it's an interesting triage process that you know we continually have a list of jobs that we have to assess every time a new job comes in. Where does it fit on that list? But yeah, they're very busy, and we also have the ability to call on external contractors when needed.
Right. So I'm aware that the Springfield Golf Course has a few troublesome trees, but I guess they can make contact with you if they felt that was useful.
Certainly could.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brown and Councillor Waru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you guys for the report. Just wondered if you could expand on the rough sleeping issue. Could you give us an idea of actual numbers, what the scale of the problem is? Is this a parks only thing? Are we including the CBD rough sleepers in the numbers that you're reporting on?
I'd have to come back to you on total numbers, but what we were referring to in this report specifically was relation to parks and reserves, but we can come back to you with some further detail on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te tiamana. Just touching on what Councillor Brown has just mentioned around the rough sleeping. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of those they're being moved away or moved off our reserves and parks. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we've had, I suppose we've had accumulations where the rough sleepers have gathered together, and Kūrau Park was one particular area where that got to a point where there was significant public concern, so we worked with the police on that. There is a displacement then of people to places like Rotorua Point, and again, we've had to do a bit of work with that. But all the way along, there's continual check-ins with social services to try and say, look, here's your options. Here's other places that you can go. Please don't stay in the parks.
Thank you. I was just concerned because I've noticed, especially over the last month in town, there's with the trolleys of clothes and things like that. I was just wondering if we're actually doing something to work with the Ministry of Social Development and things like that. So glad to hear that we're trying to support them and help them.
Just get Andrew to see you to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I would say, just to be clear, the parks team are looking after the parks, not resourced to look after the people. So I think what you've heard articulated is a concern that we've noticed, and with the team that we've got, they're doing their best without having resources specifically dedicated to addressing this issue.
Thank you, Andrew. No, I understand that. You're doing the best you can within the purview that you're given and the resources available. But it's good, it's a couple of phone calls to Ministry of Social Development and things like that. So, kapai. My second question is around the sports field vandalism. What do we as council do to support sports field vandalism, or is it only council properties we deal with?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about the question. We do what we can to deter the vandalism. Generally, it's most often it's vehicles. Whether that be four wheels or two. Where it's four wheels, we can do quite simple things that still allow access for everybody else, and that has happened in a lot of cases. We also work with the police and CCTV where we can to identify offenders, and then they can take over from there. Two wheels, it's a little bit more difficult because it actually to stop a motorbike getting onto the sports fields, you restrict prams and wheelchairs and things like that as well. So we try and take a balanced approach as best we can with that to make sure that we still maintain public access, and that may be what particular gates they can go through, which are associated with CCTV, so that if anyone is illegally accessing a sports field to cause damage, they have to go past cameras and points like that. So it's a combined piece of work with our community safety team and our police friends to try and just deter it as much as we can.
Thank you, Rob. And on a more positive note, awesome to see some of those initiatives coming to fruition. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. That appears to be all the questions. Thank you for your report and for all your answers and for actually providing a bit more detail around the rough sleeping. So maybe you could circulate those things to numbers to the councillors. Alex, that would be great. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, sorry, just before you go, Councillor Maxwell. Please go ahead.
I'm thrilled. Thanks for the report, but seeing the touching on the achievements, working with whether it's rugby with this New Zealand Touch or Maori Rugby League, we do get a lot of good media coverage about a good example is just over the weekend, the big Maori tournament that was held. And they like coming back here every year, and I'm pleased that you're working. You've got signed a 3-year partnership with many of these organisations. I think that's good for not only the sport, but for our own community, accommodation and things that are required. So it wasn't a question, but it was a bit of a bouquet for the things that have been done here in the report. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Maxwell. Thank you. Thank you, team. We'll now move on to item 7.3, councillors. That's on page 40 of your agenda, the Capital Delivery Project's progress report for April to May. I ask Elrond to come forward to overview his report. Could I have a mover and a seconder that the report be received, please? Councillor O'Brien and seconded by Councillor Wing. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. You'll notice, councillors, that you've been provided with some hard copies in front of you that relate to Elrond's report. He's printed them off for us very nicely. And also, just to note that some of the parts of the report are in confidential as well. You'll notice the reports that are in Stella are confidential, so we'll save questions on those to the confidential section of the meeting, please. But for the moment, I will hand over to Elrond to overview his report. Thank you, Elrond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a presentation today. I'll take the report as read. Just an explanation. There was some concerns raised by committee members at the last meeting about the readability of the information on Stella, so that's why we've handed out hard copies. I appreciate particularly when items are in A3, they're tricky to read. Some other things that we've addressed in the report are an explanation of the IAP2 framework, and also some slides providing a lot more detail and context around what the infrastructure interventions are that will be put in as part of the IIG programme. Happy to answer any questions on the report.
Thank you, Elrond. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te tiamana. Kia ora, Elrond. Thank you for the overview and the kōrero in your report. Just a quick question. There are, and you can shut me down if you want to, but there's a main drain at the back of the Waikuta blocks heading along the main road to Ongotaha, being neglected for quite some time now. Are there any plans to fix that within your program? Was that a Stavros question?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. For you, Madam Chair, yes, I could invite Stavros to answer that question on my behalf.
Thanks, Stavros.
With regards to the stormwater improvements, Councillor Waro, I think there are a whole range of renewal projects or / renewal versus upgrade, because when we renew something, we usually incorporate upgrades processes. So I think areas where we have been identified where we have ongoing stormwater, let's call it ponding area, are into our long-term strategy, and gradually those things will be rectified as we go along. I can't give you exact timing at this point in time, but it's on our radar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Maxwell, then Councillor Lee.
Thank you. Thanks for the report and for the good information that's on here. Can I ask you, I looked up there and I saw Utahina channel enhancements. Can you refresh my memory? What kind of things can we look forward to? I mean, we're disappointed with Bay of Plenty Regional Council, of course, who don't seem to be coming to help us, but what are some of the enhancements?
Absolutely, Councillor. Through you, Madam Chair. The Utahina and channel enhancements have been brought into the programme. This is part of the, you'll hear me talk about the variation orders that we do. So we actually, some of the projects that didn't seem to be viable, we reduced the scope of them to enable this piece of work. We need to work with regional council to actually understand what the most appropriate interventions are. We get the best value for money on it, but potentially, the kind of solutions that we're looking at are, kind of deepening or widening the channel, as Stavros has alluded to in previous committee meetings, and some kind of reinforcement of the channel at certain key points that are weak. But I can't speak to anything specific at the moment because we're not in a position where we've actually carried out the feasibility work.
Okay.
Thank you. And Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, page 41 of the agenda. Elron, thank you for your report. Third paragraph, the recovered water discharge strategy has entered the early governance phase. How are you getting on with all of that? What are we up to?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Madam Chair. Could I please invite Ian Gray, who's the Programme Manager, who's actually overseeing that piece of work, who could speak to you in detail.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, while Ian gets up, I'll
Thank you.
happily remind Councillor Lee we've had a very interesting workshop on the multi-criteria analysis. There will be a subsequent workshop coming shortly, and that's probably, I'm not sure if Ian wants to add anything more to that, but in terms of status, that's where things are at.
Welcome, Ian.
So just for context, so you'll be familiar with Will Bamford, who's the Programme Manager for the museum. Ian carries out the same role, but on our wastewater programme.
Cool, thank you. Through the Chair. As I'll only add a tiny bit of context to Andrew's, I understand Monday we have the second workshop. We've been through the first workshop, so that next workshop will add a little bit of detail, and we'll be looking to narrow that down so that we can take the parameters. It was largely based at this point on the multi-criteria analysis, which is looking for our framework to how we go forward with the working party. So we will go through a whole lot on Monday around the framing and how that project will proceed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. Any further questions, councillors? There appear to be none. Thank you, Will, for your full report, and there'll probably be more questions later on in the meeting. Nice to have you at the table, Ian. Thank you. Yes, and Councillor Warrior has a question.
Thank you for your indulgence. Just a quick question. Sorry, I should have asked before. In terms of the work program and how it rolls out, is it, the pace at which we do things, is that to do with managing more the financials, or is it more the capacity to do it?
Thank you, Councillor, again for you, Madam Chair. In short, both. There's an attachment in the confidential section that breaks down both the financials and the timeframes that I'll be more than happy to speak to.
Thank you, and sorry, I'll wait for them. Kia ora.
That's a good question for later. Thank you. Thank you, team. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you later in the meeting. Thank you.
Right.
So now, councillors, we're on page 53 of your agenda, and the proposal to move into public excluded. There are 6 items that for your consideration in public excluded today, and also the opportunity to ask those questions about the items that were confidential earlier on. The reason for confidentiality is because the information concerns commercial sensitivity, and the items are 8.1, the minutes of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting held on the 7th of May, the Infrastructure Investment for Growth Programme Overview, and procurement, land acquisition and engagement framework. 8.3 is the approval of a 3-year term extension contract for a roading network maintenance and management contract. And 8.4 is the Polynesian Spa Limited admission charge increase. 8.5 is the Rotorua Museum's seismic strengthening and restoration financial update. And item 8.6 is the Cuesco report on East Rotoiti review. Consideration has been given to the public interest in each of these items, and it's in the officer's advice that the above reasons for confidentiality outweigh the public interest in all of these matters. Do I have a mover to move into public excluded under section 48 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, please? That's Councillor Waru. A seconder, Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. And further, I would just ask if we could move a motion to that Simon Aitken, the consultant on secondment from Tonkin and Taylor, be permitted to attend the confidential session for confidential item infrastructure investment for growth, stormwater program overview. Simon is a consultant that will be working on this program, and it would be, we need to have him in the room. So just a motion to do that, please. That's Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That is carried. Thank you. We'll just make sure that the